What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Draft Report. In today's video, we'll be talking about Clemson cornerback Nate Wiggins and if he should be the first cornerback off the board in April. Wiggins is a very long corner, standing 6'2" with near 33-inch arms. This length allows him to be very good off the line and press. Here's a good example of that, as he's very patient with his punch and is able to just completely control this rep. We watch it again. Here he is on the top left. He's very controlled, doesn't overextend, but as the receiver runs, nice controlled press, two-hand punch right on the chest plate, and then just absolutely controls this rep, takes full advantage for that 5-yard area, and just absolutely takes this receiver out of the play. Here's another good example of Wiggins' ability in press. He's lined up in the slot here on this receiver, and he does a good job allowing the receiver to get depth on him. He doesn't overextend. He uses that length to get hands on first, get on the chest plate with two hands, and then as this receiver tries to stack and get vertical, he just forces him out to the sideline and doesn't allow him any room for the quarterback to throw. We watch it again. You see, nice patience, allows the receiver to get to him, controlled, good timing, two-hand punch as the receiver moves those arms, isn't able to swipe them away, and then force them towards the boundary. Wiggins is also an exceptional athlete, showing great bursts and acceleration. Here's a good example of that. So he's in off coverage about 10 yards off of his receiver, and his receiver is going to run around a 5-yard curl. But he realizes this very quickly in the route and gets downhill so quickly and is almost able to force an incompletion. Before Mays even getting rid of this ball, he's already getting downhill, and he has about 7 yards of space to make up, which most guys wouldn't even get close to. But he's able to use that insane acceleration and get downhill and stop this play in its tracks before his receiver can pick up any extra yards. Let's watch this again in full speed. Just look at how elite his closing speed is. Wiggins also does a good job diagnosing routes and beating receivers on their breaks. On this play, the receiver sells this like it's an inside route, causing Wiggins to flip his hips inside, but then he slightly turns this outside before he breaks. Wiggins breaks down, turns those hips around quickly, and gets back to the ball, even though it's a little short. We watch this again in full speed. Wiggins turns inside, slight adjustment, he's already breaking outside. Look at this. Before the receiver's not even breaking yet, Wiggins has already turned around. On the break, Wiggins is ahead of his receiver and is able to be in front of him, easily mirroring this route. Let's watch this one more time in full speed. Wiggins thinks this inside, sells it outside, gets those hips around quickly. Another area where Wiggins excels is at the catch point. He does a great job using his length to deter passes from receivers. On this play, big jump ball up to Keon Coleman, one of the best contested catchers in this draft, and he does a great job getting his head around to the ball, getting good body positioning, using his verticality and his length to go and get it at its highest point and not give the receiver a chance. He does a great job not making too much contact with Coleman, playing the ball, and again, getting that head around so there's no chance for pass interference and getting contact on the ball to get it away from the receiver. Here's another good example of that against a 6'7" receiver in Johnny Wilson. He does a great job positioning his body to get in front of the ball and then at the last second getting that head around and using his length to not allow Johnny Wilson to jump over the top of him. Although he doesn't play the ball here, he does a good job not grabbing too much and causing a penalty, but he also does enough to Johnny Wilson to deter him from catching the ball. While Wiggins is great in coverage, he does sometimes still make mistakes. Here's a good example of that. This receiver is just going to run a straight stutter and go, and Wiggins gets completely lost on this stutter. He does a good job staying in phase for the beginning part of it, and then when this receiver kind of breaks down here, he just completely loses his footwork and gets this receiver about 4 steps in front of him. It doesn't end up costing him, but at the next level it will, and he needs to learn when to not bite on this eye candy and be fooled by the receivers. Another problem that comes up occasionally is a little bit of laziness in his game. On this play, he's lined up on the outside and off coverage, and this receiver is going to break this in. And you can see he's pretty far off, which is fine, but we know he has the ability to close this space much quicker, and he just kind of lazily gets over there, and it allows the receiver time, or the quarterback time, to fit this into his receiver, and Wiggins can't just rely on his length at the end to get in there. But we know if he uses his elite burst, he's getting downhill and shutting this down, but you can just see he's a little rounded and high-hipped and lazy at the top of this, doesn't really flip his hips super quickly, and doesn't get downhill as quick as we know he can. Another slight area of weakness in Wiggins' game is his lack of truly elite high-end speed. He'll probably be like a mid to low 4.4s guy, which is still above average for the league, but it shows up on sometimes in game film where he'll just get beat vertically. So here's a good example of that. He's able to force this receiver out to the boundary, but then this receiver is able to vertically stack on him, gain a step just with pure speed, and May's able to fit this into a very tight window. Now, this is a very tough throw and probably won't be hit too much at the next level, but you can just see he lacks that high end speed and can get beat vertically. Wiggins' biggest weakness as a player is his lack of strength. He stands 6'2", but only 185 pounds, causing him to be very lean and weak. Here's a good example of that. This really comes into play as a run defender, as on an outside receiver. This run gets through to the second level, and receiver gets first contact with the hands, and Wiggins just takes super long to get off of this block. So we can see he does a decent job deconstructing the block and eventually getting off, but takes way too long where he could shut this play down before the sticks, and this running back's off to the races. However, Wiggins does possess great motor, as we're about to see here. When in run defense, while he might not be the best at it, he's going to try the hardest on the field. We see he's about 2 yards behind this defender, gets caught. He's about 4 yards behind this defender, but he uses that makeup speed, tracks him all the way down, forces a fumble, turns 7 points for North Carolina into a touchback for his team. I mean, just an elite play that started out very poor for him. As we watch it again, struggles to get off this block here, can't make the tackle, but then chases this running back all the way down, runs all the way down the sideline, breaks it up for a touchback. Wiggins' lack of strength also comes up as a tackler a lot. Here's a good example of that. This can be a quick out route that he's not able to get downhill on, and then he's just not able to wrap up and make this tackle. He's a pretty good, like, just pull and drag to the ground tackler, but when he has to make a tackle in space like this, his arms just aren't strong enough to drag people down, and he really has to be a body tackler, which is very hard when two dudes are moving very fast to get body on body and make a tackle. And he commonly comes out like this, missing a tackle, slowing him down enough for another guy to get there, which might not work as well at the next level. While Wiggins is very good in man coverage, he's just as good in zone coverage. Here's a good example of that. Clemson's running a cover 3, and he's going to be the outside corner, but he realizes this route in front of him is going to be a little comeback, and he does a great job reading May's eyes. You can see May's looking this receiver down, and before May even releases this ball, Wiggins is already at their receiver, and he uses that elite makeup speed, recovers on this ball, picks it off, big play, ices the game. So that's going to wrap up the film portion of today's breakdown. I just want to end this video with my final thoughts, a player comparison, and a grade for Nate Wiggins. So overall, he is a super long corner, 6'2", lengthy arms, and he pairs that with elite athleticism. His quickness and burst is so good, and then he pairs that with long speed that's above average, maybe not elite, but probably low 4.4s, mid 4.4s, somewhere in there. So he's truly exceptional as an athlete, and when you pair that with his length, he's a pretty scary corner to go up against. But he does struggle a little bit with mass, and he's a very lean guy, standing 185, which is in the 19th percentile for cornerbacks. So especially at that height, he's going to need to add weight because most of his problems stem from that. His inability to get off blocks and his weaknesses as a tackler are mostly due to his lack of strength and mass. And then some of his weaknesses in coverage, his press punch isn't super strong or doesn't deter players off their routes too much when it's not perfectly timed. So I think adding mass, just 5 to 7 pounds, something in there, so he won't lose too much speed, but just gives him a little more ability in the run and makes him a more complete player. And then outside of that, he's pretty much perfect when it comes to technique. He will get a little lazy sometimes or fall for some eye candy, but his ability to mirror and identify routes before they're ran is pretty good, especially for someone who's only 20 years old. So I think he'll be a true lockdown corner and man. And then he's very scheme versatile because he can fit into a cover 3 because of his long speed and hips and instincts, but then he can also fit into a cover 2, playing a flat boundary area, using his instincts and his quickness to get downhill and break plays up and be a playmaker catching picks. but then obviously he's excellent in man. So I think any scheme he can fit into perfectly and be a impact player from day one. He reminds me of Darius Slay a little bit. Very lengthy guy with high end speed, very good quickness, and a knack to make plays on the ball. Slay's always forcing fumbles, always catching picks, deflecting passes. His nickname's Big Play Slay, and I think Nate Wiggins can be that level of player. I have him as a 6.89 on my 8-point scale, making him a future high-end starter and someone I would take in the top 10. He should be the first cornerback off the board, in my opinion. Kool-Aid and Terrion Arnold and Cooper DeJean are very good, but I think Nate Wiggins is the best of all of them, and I believe he has the ability to be a future Pro Bowler at some point in his NFL career. So that's going to wrap up the video. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.